Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about my June and my July reading wrap up. And guys, these are the best 2 months that I have had in all of 2025. I read more books, I had high ratings. I'm so happy to be here right now. All of the rest of the last 6-7 months of this year, or I guess 4 months, I was slogging through. I had so many 3-star reads, it wasn't even funny, but we broke through and I am so ready to talk to you guys about all of these amazing books. Let's talk about it. Starting out in the month of June, I picked up Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney. Sally Rooney is an author that I knew that I really liked because I read Normal People by this author. And in this story, we're following essentially 4 main characters. We have Alex, who is a novelist, and she meets Felix, who works in a warehouse. They meet on a first date. It doesn't really go well. They realize they're not quite compatible in the way that they wanted. They kind of become friends. They have a weird relationship, to be honest, but that's classic Sally Rooney behavior. They have an odd relationship. And Alex asks Felix if he would like to just go to Rome with her on this book event tour thing that she has going on. Then meanwhile, we have Alice's best friend Eileen, who is going through a breakup, and she kind of falls into flirting with her childhood best friend Simon. And essentially this whole book is a character study about understanding yourself, understanding your friendships, your relationships. We look at this group of 4 characters in a lot of different iterations. You have the friendships between them, the relationships between them, like I said, and ultimately just how they see the world and if the world really can be deemed a beautiful place. This one I gave a 3.75, mostly because I was a little bit bored at points. I didn't feel as invested in the characters as I did in, again, Normal People, but I still liked it and I would absolutely recommend it. Then next we have a book that I'm very proud to be talking about right now, and that is Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J. Maas. I'm not going to be talking about this for super long because I talked about it in my new favorite books video of all time, whatever, that one, you know what I'm talking about. And yeah, all that to say, I loved this book. It has taken me years to get through the Throne of Glass series. I started it in college, stopped, had to restart it over a year ago, and we made it here. And guys, this series is everything that it's cracked up to be and more. And also, I'm going to say this now, please don't be intimidated by the number of pages that are in these books. I feel like I would look at them and that's literally the entire reason that I didn't want to pick them up. But this book, it doesn't feel like 1,000 pages, and it's because Sarah J. Maas takes you the whole way through. You start out with small books, so by the time you get to this one, you're so invested and it's an easy read. Again, it's intense emotionally, but in terms of understanding, it's not that bad. And yeah, I absolutely loved this book. It's magical, and that's all that I'm gonna say because I've talked about this far too much on my channel to spend any more time talking about it, but it's wonderful. Before I talk about the next book, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps me and my channel find other wonderful readers like you. And with all that said, let's talk about the next book. The next book that I read in the month of June was Martyr by Kaveh Akbar. And you guys might notice a theme here that quite a few books in this video have been the books that have been sitting on my physical TBR for absolutely ages. And it's because I've been doing this Zero Shelf Control series on Shorts and on TikTok where I'm completely tackling my physical TBR. And so I hope that you guys are so proud of me that all of these books are the books that I've had for so long. Anyway, on to Martyr. This book really surprised me because I absolutely loved it. In the story, we're following our main character, Cyrus, who is an Iranian immigrant, and he has struggled with a lot of different things in his life, with addiction, with alcoholism, with depression, and his mom passed away in a very unfortunate plane accident, and his father he grew up with in America who got a job killing chickens at a local factory in, I think, in the Midwest. And Cyrus ultimately becomes obsessed with the idea of martyrs and martyrdom. He loves poetry. He's a poet himself. He loves to write poetry. And this idea of martyrs in poetry really just grabs his attention and he wants to capture it. And he ends up going on a bit of an adventure with his best friend They go on a trip to New York to kind of uncover what martyrdom really means because of this woman who has some kind of show in New York. I don't want to say much more than that, but basically he sees an opportunity to talk to someone who in essence could be considered a true martyr themselves, or understand this concept that Cyrus is trying to unravel. I loved this book. I gave it a 4-star. It starts out really slow, and then I blinked and all of a sudden I just could not put this book down, because there's this bit of like, not a mystery that comes up, but there's a twist that comes in towards the end that I was just absolutely not expecting. And I think it's purely because I did not know to look for it. I feel like that's never something that I'm on the lookout for when it comes to literary fiction like this. And yeah, I just became really passionate about Cyrus and his relationship with his best friends and his best friend and his family, and how he viewed himself and how he viewed martyrdom. And yeah, this was definitely a highlight. I really, really enjoyed this book. So if you guys have been considering reading this book, I absolutely highly recommend it. And I'm kind of mad at myself for letting this sit on my shelf for so freaking long. After that, I needed a bit of a vibe switch, if you will, and that is when I began my Percy Jackson series reread. So I'm not sure exactly why or when or how this happened, but towards the end of June, I got the deep urge to do a reread of the entire Percy Jackson series. And I'm not just talking about the first 5. I'm talking like the first 10. We have like the first 5 books, and then there's the second 5. I think they're called the Heroes of Olympus. Whatever. My true urge is to reread the second series, but in order to do that justice, I wanted to reread these ones first. And so I did reread this book, and I was kind of nervous because this is definitely a book written for the youth, if you know what I mean. It is not an adult book, and I was worried that I would have this experience where I don't quite like it as much the first time. And so I am very happy to report that this book hit just as hard the first time. I loved it. You guys probably all know the plot of these books, so I'm not going to get into that, but I had a wonderful time. I can say that I have not continued my reread of this series. I do have the entire series. I've just been, again, tackling my physical TBR, so it hasn't been my biggest priority. But now that my shelf is essentially down to 0, I'm on my last book right now. Feels good. I am going to be continuing this series, and I'm very, very excited about it. All that to say, 5 stars, but it's kind of like an honorary 5 stars because it's a reread, and it's like, I'm not going to rate it anything less. I'm going to rate them all 5 stars probably, just because I love them. Okay, so that was June. We are now transitioning into the month of July, and in July we had some highs and we had some lows, so just be prepared for that. The first book that I read in the month of July was Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. Now, this is a book that you guys, yes, you have been begging me to read for the longest time out of all of the books on this channel. I have had this book for years now, plural years, which is so out of character for me. The reason primarily that I was putting this off is because it's the start of a fantasy series, and I haven't been starting fantasy series in a long time because I'm in the middle of so many series, but I finally did it because, of course, it's on the physical TBR, and I really enjoyed this book. In this, we are following the story of Jace Ballinger, who is the son of like a very powerful patriarch of these lands, we'll say. And at the beginning of our story, Jace's father passes away and Jace becomes the new patriarch of these lands. Meanwhile, we're also following Kazi, who is a very well-known, renowned street thief in her completely separate part of this realm. She doesn't live anywhere near Jace. And she, over the course of many years of being a street thief, ultimately gets this opportunity to work for the queen. Now, we know at the beginning of the book that the queen has sent Kazi, among a few other of her workers, I don't know exactly what you would call them, Kazi and a few others, on this mission to the Ballinger territory to uncover some things. We don't know what those things are, but they're doing some investigating. And we really quickly get a bit of like an enemies to lovers vibe from Jace and Kazi when they meet. And there's also a very, very unique, in my opinion, forced proximity situation that emerges once the two of them meet at the beginning of our book that kind of sparks things. Yeah, I really enjoyed the romance in here. I loved the world building. The thing that like took it down from a 5, I ended up giving this book a 4, was I wanted more magic. I feel like when I look at this book, I'm like, oh my gosh, it's going to be the quintessential like magical YA romantasy situation. And I felt like we had a lot of like, you know, the kingdom and that whole situation was set up. We had the romance all set up and the plot was really amazing, but there was a stark lack of actual magic in here. There were some creatures and some things like that, but there was like not a ton of magic. And that's kind of what I was hoping to get out of this book. And so yeah, that's kind of what knocked it down for me. I will be continuing this though. It's a duology and I'm very curious to see where we go from here. Then guys, this book came completely out of left field for me. I picked up The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han. I had never read these books before, but The Summer I Turned Pretty, season 1, season 2, season 3, whatever, all this stuff is all over my social media. Everybody's talking about it and I was getting a little bit of FOMO. I needed an audiobook to listen to on my like 4-hour plane ride, or no, 3-hour plane ride, I think, from Dallas to Oregon, the trip I took this summer. And so I downloaded this and I listened to all my audiobooks on 2x speed. And so I listened to essentially the entire audiobook. It's like 6 hours in one plane ride. And honestly, I liked it. I was not, being so honest, expecting to like this book. I don't really like YA and I hate love triangles. And so I was like, this is a recipe for disaster, but the FOMO was just too strong. So I did download it and I did listen to it. And the love triangle, at least in the first part of this book, was pretty light. And now that I'm talking, I realize I haven't said much about this. Basically, making it short and sweet, we're following our main character, Belly, who every summer she goes to her like family home in Cousins Beach, and they share this home with her mom's like absolute best friend, Susanna, and Susanna's 2 sons. Okay. And there's a love triangle between Belly and her 2 sons. All right. And I was like, this is truly a recipe for disaster. But again, the love triangle was pretty light, all things considered, in the first book. Like it really didn't bother me. And I do think I'm going to continue the books because they're so easy to just fly through. But yeah, I gave it a 3 because again, I did not hate it. Like I also didn't love it. I feel very neutral about the whole thing, which if anything is brownie points because I was expecting to actively dislike it, but I didn't. I'm a little curious about the TV show because again, all of the stuff going on. And I can confidently say that in just the first book, maybe even the first like 10 pages, Team Conrad, and I will leave you with that. Here's where the highs of July come into play. The next book that I read was The Conditions of Will by Jessa Hastings. And if you guys have been watching my channel for a little while now, you would know that I made a rule with myself that I'm not allowed to pick up this book until I finish the Magnolia Park series, which I have 1 book left in it. However, this ended up being my book club's pick for the month of July. And so twist my arm. I had no choice but to pick up this book, and I absolutely loved it. It was honestly quite a disheartening experience because at book club, we had like all 2-star ratings, and then I was like 5, 6-star ratings if I can. Like I was one of the only people who rated it. I was the only person who rated it that highly, and then one of the only people who rated it highly at all. So keep that in mind if you're considering picking up this book. But in this story, we're following our main character, Georgia. She lives in London, but she ends up having to go home back to South Carolina due to a family tragedy that has occurred. And so she goes back there, and when she's home, she's kind of dealing with a whole slew of family issues, some that are a byproduct of the tragedy that happened, but also just like new things come up because her family is all psychotic. Not all of them. I liked some of them. I hated other people in her family. There is a romance that also goes on between her and someone who is basically present for all of the things going on with her family. I'm trying to be vague because the less that you know, I feel like the better. I did not know a single thing going into this book, and I loved it. It was probably my favorite book of the year I've read so far, tied with Kingdom of Ash. Like, guys, I'm telling you, these 2 months have been good to me. I love the way that Jessa Hastings writes. I absolutely loved the romance. I like cannot stress enough. I loved it. Sam Penny would date him for real. Like I loved him so much. And yeah, I think I'm going to kind of leave you with that because I didn't really know anything about this book. I loved it. Again, my book club did not. So just be aware of that before you pick up this book. But it was so good and it's making me want to pick up Magnolia Parks Into the Dark and Jess's new book, which, can we talk about that for a second? Need to read that immediately now too. So anyway, so many good books on the horizon. And now we're back to a down. And the next book that I picked up was The Roughest Draft by Emily Wibberley and Austin Sigmund Broca. This was a tragedy because I was really, really hoping that I was going to enjoy this book. I have DNF'd like almost 0 books this year. This might be the first. There might have been like one other before it. I could not stand this book. Basically, we're following 2 authors. They worked together on a book that was like an incredible bestseller, but the 2 of them had a falling out. They haven't spoken in years, and they end up getting put on this book project together where they both need to write one more book together because that's like what their contract says between them and like the publisher. I don't know exactly how that works. It's a romance between these 2 authors, which again, in theory, it sounds kind of beach read coded. It sounds really cute. Love the concept. However, the execution was so frustrating because there are 2 timelines, which again, I normally love. We have the timeline of them writing the first book together, and then the timeline of them after the fallout writing something together now. And the problem that I had is in the past timeline, the guy, the male character in this book, is married. And in the present timeline, the female character is engaged. And so it's like, oh, they're making subtle like looks at each other and oh my gosh, wait, that was actually kind of cute and this and that. Like you can, like there's these subtle things and innuendos that are going on. But I'm like, you're both literally in relationships in one of 2 timelines. And I got to about 40% into this book and decided I couldn't stand it. It was just so frustrating to read about. And so I DNF'd it and I'm so sorry, but I literally couldn't get through it. I was like, I am going to give this a 1 if I keep going. Do you guys see what I mean? That we're just like up and down big time in these 2 months. It's all over the place. But the next book that I picked up was Wild Love by Elsie Silver, which honestly, slay. I have not read an Elsie Silver book in so long. I love her Chestnut Spring series. I think it's so cute and so fun. And so I picked up this book, which is a small town romance book. And for anyone unfamiliar, this entire series by Elsie Silver, Wild Love is the first one. They're all single dad tropes in different ways. It's weird. I've like heard some other things about the books because you would think that would all get really repetitive, but she does a really good job kind of making each single dad situation very, very unique and different. But this book, I honestly have a really hard time explaining why I didn't like it. First of all, way too spicy for me personally, which I don't know why it didn't bother me quite as much in the Chestnut Spring series. But this one was just like, maybe I wasn't feeling the romance, and so the spice just felt like really unnecessary. Unsure. But there were some things, some questionable choices that Ford, our male main character, made in this story that I really had a hard time with. And I know that, again, I haven't said the plot of this, but the plot. Rosie, our female main character, is from this small town of Rose Hill, and she has gone to the big city to get a job, whatever. That ends up not working out, so she comes back home to Rose Hill, and she runs into Ford, her like childhood frenemy, essentially. They end up working together, but Ford has been in love with her for like ever. She has no idea, and Ford is her brother's best friend. So anyway, that's kind of the situation. They work together, whatever. I think it was just, too spicy to me and kind of felt disjointed. I don't have much more to say. This one just wasn't for me, but I am going to continue the series because I can't help myself. Then last but not least, we are ending on an incredibly high positive note. I read Beartown by Friedrich Bachmann, and I'm so glad that I read this book. In this story, we are following so many characters to the point where I'm not even going to get into it. There are so many. And essentially what we're looking at is this very, very tiny small town called Beartown, where the entire economy essentially of this town revolves around hockey, but not just hockey. It's the hockey team of their high school. So it's like these young boys are experiencing the pressure of an entire town, their sanity, their joy, their economics, whatever, on the performance of this team. And so at the start of our story, we're watching this hockey team as they are preparing to go to the semifinals. If they win the semifinals and then if they win the finals, it means lots of amazing things for this town, basically. And we watch as the boys deal with the pressure. We watch what it's like to be a parent navigating these dynamics, but there's so much more to this book. And ultimately there is what I would consider a tragedy that happens in this book, and we deal with all of the implications of that too in this very specific and unique context. And I love this book. I love Friedrich Bachmann's writing. I love how cyclical it is. He like brings things up and then he circles you right back to it at the end of a chapter or the end of the book. And it's so beautiful. I will say I knocked it down just a half star. I gave this a 4.5 because there were a lot of characters and I was really having a hard time figuring out who everybody was for quite a while, to the point where there's still like 2 characters in here that I'm like, wait, who are you guys? And maybe that's my fault, but like I was paying pretty close attention. So I don't know why I was so confused, and like I want to look some things up, but I don't want to spoil it for myself. So yeah, I absolutely love this book. It made me laugh. It made me cry, like all of the things. It was so good, and I will be continuing this trilogy. I feel like I should probably continue it in the winter. One of my good friends, she was like, why are you reading this in the summer? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I just want to read this so badly. And I'm glad that I did. Like, I absolutely loved it. I do think you could read this anytime, but there's a lot of descriptions of the winter in here. And it was so good. I could talk about this book all day long. I just absolutely loved it. And I really feel like the series is just going to get better and better for me. So yeah, there's just the characters in here. You blink and you're like, oh my God, I love them. Like, I don't know when that happened, but I love them and I want nothing but joy and happiness for all of them. So yeah, that was Beartown by Friedrich Bachmann. So good. Okay guys, those were the books that I read in the months of June and July. So much variety, so many high ratings, so many low ratings. Before I let you go, tell me what your like absolute top book from the last month or so was, because I would love to hear it. Love a good book rec. And with that, comment down below the, ooh, this is fun, the hockey stick emoji, so I know who made it all the way here. And I think that's it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you guys are having a great day and a great reading month, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.